When you go to a college that doesn't have a football team, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's the worst thing in the world for me because it's my favorite sport. And I've been to so many. Like I've been to Sam Levitt right there. I've been to two ASU games. I've been to two Ohio State games. I've been to a couple CU football games and I think a couple others. But man, I wish I could go like every weekend because that would be my dream. But it is part two of my video, the biggest what if questions in college football history, moments where if they have happened, they could have changed the whole landscape of college football as we know it today. If you guys remember my past video, I went through the honorable mention and 10 through 6 in my part 1, and in this video I'm going to go through wow, I can't speak. Going to go through my top 5. So, and I definitely have some bangers, especially number 3, number 2, and number 1. I really, really like those. So, with that out of the way, let's get right into it. Alright, at number 5 to start us off, we have, what if Cam Newton never threw that laptop? If you guys don't remember, in the mid-2000s, college football was ruled by Urban Meyer and the Florida Gators. Actually, one of my favorite documentaries on Netflix is Swamp Kings, all about the Florida Gators. You should check that one. That one is great. They won 2 national championships, I think 2008, 2006, and 2008. I believe it was those. They had great players, of course. Tim Tebow, Brandon Spikes, Percy Harvin, Major Wright. Great players. But a lot of people don't know is that Cam Newton was the backup quarterback in 2009. He was the backup for Tim Tebow. On October 16, 2008, Cam Newton was charged with burglary and larceny after purchasing a stolen laptop. Newton said he didn't know the laptop was stolen, but if you're buying a laptop from somebody other than a place that distributes it, like if you're going to get a laptop, you're going to get it from an Apple store. If you're going to get a MacBook, you get it from an Apple store. If you're going to get a Windows, you go to a Microsoft store. You just not buy it. You know it's stolen. When authorities showed up at his dorm and confronted him about the laptop, he thought it was the great idea to throw it out of his dorm window. Like, literally chuck it. Like, I could do that right now with my MacBook I'm recording off of right now. He literally chucked it off the window. Cam Newton was suspended from the Florida team and then transferred to Auburn. 2 years later, he would go on to win the Heisman and the national championship with Auburn. Talk about a crazy, wild events. What would Florida look like from 2010 to now? Because Florida is very talented. They very are. But they haven't really broken through yet, ever since that. Like, especially now. This season with DJ Lagway. They're very talented. They have a very talented team. They just can't find a way to win. They can't. If Cam Newton stays, does Urban Meyer not leave Florida to go to Ohio State? What does Auburn look like? Does Auburn not win a national championship? Also, the one question that I feel like can't be not highlighted. Oregon has never won a national championship in football history, which is insane to me. Because they have had some of the greatest players go through that program, and they've had so many talented teams and so many chances. And the national championship where Auburn won, they beat Oregon in the national championship. So does Oregon finally win a national championship? I think that was in 2011. I could double check. But does Oregon finally win a national championship for the first time in their program history? But yeah, that is my number 5. What if Cam Newton never threw that laptop? Okay, coming in at my number 4 spot, we have, what if West Virginia beat Pitt in 2007? If you don't remember, 2007 is considered the craziest college football year of all time. By the numbers, there was a total number of 59 upsets in 1 year. 59. If you do the math, that is 5 upsets every single week. And it was the second time ever that the national champion was not undefeated. At the time, it was the final week of the season. West Virginia is 10-1. Their only loss was an upset to South Florida. They were the number 2 seed. And at the final game of the season, they faced off against their bitter rival, the Pitt Panthers, who were 4-7. I believe it was called I think it's called the Backyard Brawl. Correct me if I'm wrong. West Virginia came in as 28-point favorites against Pitt. They would go on to lose that game 13-9 and get kicked out of the college football title game. Where instead the committee chose to put LSU in the national title game against Ohio State. And LSU would beat Ohio State in the national championship. West Virginia would go to the Fiesta Bowl, where they would go on to literally kill Oklahoma. After this season, their head coach left. They had some good seasons after that with Geno Smith and Tavon Austin, but they never got back to the championship contender they were in 2007. And they had no national championships in program history. What if they won that matchup? It is a 4-win Pitt Panthers team they lost to. A 4-win Pitt Panthers team. What if they got to play LSU or Ohio State for the national championship? And if they win, that's the biggest win in program history. And what does West Virginia look like today? Are they, because of that win, does that propel them into one of the bigger programs in college football? Are they a powerhouse in the Big 12? But yeah, that game really, really sucked for West Virginia fans. But yeah, that is my number 4 spot. What if West Virginia beat Pitt in 2007? Okay. Now into my top 3, and I really like the 3 that I chose here. I did so much research on these 3. At my number 3 spot, what if Washington chose to play number 1 BYU in 1984? For context, in 1984, Washington was the 4th seed. And they were given the option to play either number 1 BYU in the Holiday Bowl or number 2 Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. Okay? Washington chose to play the number 2 seed Oklahoma instead of number 1 BYU for bowl recognition, and they wanted more money because the Orange Bowl is more famous than the Holiday Bowl. Let's just be honest. They would go on to beat Oklahoma, and BYU beat Michigan in the Holiday Bowl. And at the end of the season, they chose BYU as the national champion because they had the most strength of schedule and they had the most wins. If they chose to play BYU, they could have swung the AP voters to vote Washington to the number 1 seed. But instead, BYU won the number 1 spot, gifting them the national championship. Washington right now has 2 national championships to their name as a program. That, if they won and they got the number 1 seed, that would have made it 3. But why? I still don't know why they chose to not play BYU. I guess I get why, but still, it's the number 1 team in the land. I'm choosing the number 1 team over a bowl recognition. If you're giving the choice to me, would I rather play the number 1 seed, let's just say the Kent State Golden Flashes, the number 1 seed in the Reliquista Bowl, but I have a chance to be the national champion? Or am I going to play Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl? I'm choosing for a chance at the national championship. Like, I don't know. This one was an odd one. There's not too much on this, but I think it's crazy that Washington had the choice to play for a national championship, but instead they chose to play number 2 Oklahoma for bowl recognition and money. But yeah, that's my number 3 pick. What if Washington chose to play number 1 BYU in 1984? Okay, coming in at my number 2 spot, and this one was insane when I looked this one up, when I was researching possible ones for this video. What if Washington State played CU in 2001? CU, Colorado, of course. In 2001, Colorado was scheduled to play Washington State on September 15th. At the time, it was a top 10 matchup and one of the most hyped games of the entire year. But it got canceled because of 9/11. Colorado would go on to finish the year 10-2 and smoke out Nebraska by 30 and would go on to win the Big 12 championship in 2001. But, and a big but, the AP voters didn't think that CU's strength of schedule was high enough to play in the national championship. So who do they send instead to go to the national championship? Instead of CU? Nebraska. The team that CU smoked. Nebraska went on to the national championship to play Miami, where Miami won by 23. Again, they got smoked out because they didn't deserve to be in there. CU deserved to be in there. Washington State would go on to go 10-2, and they would finish as the 12th seed. This is more on CU than Washington State, but if Washington State would have won against that matchup against CU, their strength of schedule would have been really high. Both of these teams got robbed. I'm just going to be honest. Whoever won, their strength of schedule would be higher and could have pushed one of these teams to the national championship. Again, it's more CU than Washington State, but you get the point. In 2001, we could have seen the CU versus Miami national championship. Miami at the time had a 34-game winning streak. I don't know. I think they finished with 43 or something like that because they lost the next year to Ohio State in the national championship. That could have been a lot shorter if they played CU. What CU would have beat Miami, I don't know. But it's up for discussion because they blew out Nebraska by 30. But yeah, that is my number 2 spot. What if Washington State played Colorado in 2001? Okay, we have finally made it. My number 1 what if question in college football history. And I really like this one. What if Texas never created the Longhorn Network? For context, in 2010, the Big 12 was in shambles. That's just what happened. I'm not sure why they're in shambles, but the only competitive teams were Texas and Oklahoma, of course. So maybe it was a competitive issue, and I'm not sure. But the Pac-12 saw this and proposed to make a super conference. They would have called it the Pac-16. It would have been like the Pac-12 got Texas, Texas Tech, CU, Nebraska. I think Missouri would have went to the Big 10 and some other. The Big 12 would be gone, pretty much. And it almost got passed. But, and a big but, the University of Texas decided it was a great idea to start the Longhorn Network, which only aired Texas athletic sporting events. This created an unfair revenue stream for Texas, and the other Big 12 teams were pissed. Like angry, because they weren't getting enough money as Texas because of this Longhorn Network. I mean, that's pretty stupid. Why do you need a network? You're a college program. And that pissed off so many teams. That's why Colorado went to the Pac-12. That's why Nebraska went to the Big 10. And that's why Texas A&M went to the SEC. They almost broke up the Big 12, but it didn't entirely break it up, and more canceled that Pac-16 Super Conference that that the Pac-12 was proposing. That pissed off the college football committee, and that pissed off the conferences, of course. What if they didn't create that network? Like, we could have seen a Pac-16 with Texas and Texas Tech among many other Big 12 teams. Think about that. Think about that. That is insane. That would have changed the entire outlook of college football. The Pac-12, is dissolved today, but it would not have been dissolved if this proposal went true and Texas never created the Longhorn Network. I mean, that is crazy to think about. And, wow, that's just nuts. But yeah, that is my number one pick. That is my number one on this video. What if Texas never created the Longhorn Network? Alright, guys, that is going to be the video for you guys today. I had an immensely fun time researching all 10 of these what if questions. And there's definitely more, but I was trying to go more underground. And hopefully I can find others, because I really like to make a part 2 on this. More like a part 3, because you know what I mean. But as always, thank you for watching me. And as always, be safe, folks.